Hi everybody, it's Dr. Z. We are in the fourth video for the French Revolution. This is the exciting one of the terror and the guillotine, so hang on. So as we move towards some of the more gory parts of the revolution, we have to realize that this part of the French Revolution is called the Second Revolution. Historians have named it this. This is when the Legislative Assembly becomes the National Convention. It's also when France is proclaimed as a republic, and that's France's first republic. The United States is still in its first republic. We are the longest lasting republic. France has gone through a number of different republics in their history when they have lost their republics. And so this is their first one. This is also when we have various political factions, such as the Jacobins and the Girondins in the mountain. And this is also when the king is going to be convicted of treason. The king and queen are both going to be executed. And this is when the war against tyranny is going to happen. This is when France goes and the French revolutionary troops go and try to attack other monarchs and nobles across Europe. So in the National Convention, right, we have to kind of establish something here. You understand the political right and the political left. Most of you are American students and understand that in the American legislative system, there are people who are in the Republican Party in the United States, right, which is considered to be on the right, and people in the Democratic Party of the United States, which is considered to be the left. This designation of right and left comes from the National Convention. It's literally where people sat with other delegates who had a similar political affinity to them. So this is the French National Convention in 1792, and you can see the right versus the left, and where they actually sat. So the king is here. We have the king is executed. Okay, and this is a similar drawing to the one that we saw at the beginning of this video series. So Louis the XVI is executed facing that podium that used to have his grandfather's statue on it. And at this point in the revolution, right, with the king being deposed, finally we can say that yes, France is no longer a constitutional monarchy, right, but they are moving into a republic. Now, Marie Antoinette, as sort of there's many different ways to think about her, in one way, and the way that I've portrayed her in the beginning of this video, right, is somebody who is focused on clothing. And, as I said, she was a hipster, right? She made fun of poor people. She really, has gone down in history with this sort of poor reputation. Other historians, on the other hand, though, have portrayed her in a much more as somebody with a much more sort of beneficial way of thinking about history. So here we see a drawing of her waiting for her execution as sort of a simple woman. They've cut her hair, and a number of different historians, say that she actually was a lot more thoughtful than she often gets portrayed. When Marie Antoinette was imprisoned waiting for her execution, she had no privacy. This is a photograph from a museum that shows her cell with the Revolutionary Guard standing there looking at her. So she did not have any privacy whatsoever. And as you can imagine, as the Queen of France, this was a very sort of insulting way to spend your last days. After her husband was executed, she was also executed. And here we see a portrayal, two portrayals of that. The French revolutionary armies at this time were not just going after the French king and queen, but they were going after the nobility in the rest of Europe. So you can see that pink is annexed by France. So we see the Austrian Netherlands here, the province of Savoy here, which is northern Italy today. Areas occupied by France, right? So we see Piedmont here, bits of Tuscany here occupied by France, right? States established by revolutionary France, most of Italy, as well as this northern part of the Netherlands up here. So really surprising, right? And then, of course, Venetian lands given to Austria by France, right? As most of the Dalmatian coast of Croatia there, along with Venice. So the French Revolution did not just stay in France, right? It was moving through Europe. French armies were chasing princes, abolishing feudalism. They found support among peasants and bourgeoisie wherever they went, but they were stealing food, supplies, plundering local treasures, and a lot of locals around Europe saw them as foreign invaders rather than as liberators. They declared war on after going after Italy and the Netherlands. They went to the Dutch Republic. They went to Britain. They went to Spain. This made them engage in war with most of Europe. And in the beginning, they didn't see a lot of success, but later on they did. And peasants in the region of Brittany in today in northwestern France revolted against the draft. The Revolutionary Guard was drafting people, and these peasants were encouraged by Catholics, by royalists, by French, by foreign agents who were operating in France. And so not everybody was on board with all of this revolutionary fervor that was bleeding out of France and going into the rest of Europe. This fervor, though, was supported by leftists in the National Assembly. So the Jacobins are the biggest sort of group of leftists, and they're divided themselves between the Girondins and the Mountain. So Jacobins were younger. They felt very patriotic, right? When all of the European monarchs said, we will make sure that Louis XVI gets put back on the throne. This really sort of made the Jacobins feel like, no, we have to protect France, right? And if the kings of Europe are going to declare war on France, then they should declare war on a war of the people against kings. And this was really motivating this war against tyranny. So they are divided between the Girondins. Sometimes it's called Girondin, sometimes it's Girondist, and I'm not sure of the grammar. So you will see it written in that way in different places. Your textbook tends to use ists, and the internet tends to use ins. So these are moderates that are still on the left. They're more like central left, okay, who fought for control of the National Assembly, and they accept the guilt of the king, but they didn't want the king executed. So they were the ones, this is the execution of the king really divided the left, right? So they were saying, no, we shouldn't execute the king. But of course, we know they lost. And the Mountain, which is the far left, led by Robespierre, and the National Convention's radical faction, they seized legislative power in 1793, and they were the ones arguing that Louis XVI should be killed, should be executed. There's another group called the Sans Culottes, and these are working class people, mainly in Paris, who wear long pants. Sans culotte means without culottes or without knee breeches. Knee breeches are worn like pants that come to your knee. Those are worn by aristocracy, by the nobility, by very wealthy people. Workers wore long pants in France at the time. So if you were a worker, you didn't wear culottes, you wore long pants. Therefore, you were a sans culotte. They were seen as the militant radicals, and they're going to get together in our next section with the Mountain for the Reign of Terror. So stay tuned. More brutality is to come.